Hello, everybody. Welcome to April.
Almost May.
Whoa, this is
Day.
bad, guys and gals. April 30th. I'm just way off. I'm just off today.
May. It's just one day early.
Yes, this is the April webinar, the very last day we could have possibly had the April webinar.
This is true.
We've been busy, Chris. Chris, you've been busy.
Yes, I have.
We've been busy with this book.
Yes, we have.
It's finally done.
Yes, this is true.
It is a masterpiece.
No, it's all that's left is the audio.
The audio is done too.
Well,
Just needs to be uploaded.
A little more content needs to be added and it's done.
Right. So I guess this webinar is like the overview of clinical research because it's inspired by our book. Okay. So it's an overview of clinical research. We're trying to give a bird's eye view. We're trying to go through a whole bunch of stuff in this book. But we talk about this a lot, and this is one of my thesis, and I think you agree with me too, as far as everyone needs to strive to be a generalist and less of a specialist as you put in your time in this space. Now, you're going to eventually be a specialist in something, but don't just stop there. Okay, then you got to learn about new things and be specialist in those things. And ultimately, you're going to become a generalist. That's how you have, if you're an employee, that's how you have job security, optimal job security in any economy. And if you're a site, this is how you have the best chance of success, is if you can do the most diverse set of things. Because if being a specialist and specializing in just one niche everyone's going to start there, but it's very dangerous too. It leaves you very vulnerable. So what we wanted to do with this book was not only introduce new people to research, because this is a complicated field, right? I mean, there's no two ways about that. It's one of the most complicated, secretive, I don't know why, but it is, industries out there, and the acronyms everywhere. And then on top of that, you layer it with all these deep specializations, and you just get a whole bunch of different verticals of people that know a lot about that vertical, but don't know much about the other verticals.
Mm-hmm.
Like CRAs, they don't know almost anything about how things work at sites.
This is true.
Sites don't know almost anything about how things work at CROs. Vendors know nothing about everything. So this book is really, it's like a roadmap showing you what's out there, what's the bare minimum you need to know, where to dig deeper. What am I missing here, Chris? Speak to the people.
I don't think you're missing anything.
We'll give them some color.
Color commentary, eh? I don't know if this is color, but so everybody can chat. Has anybody purchased the book? Those attending.
Yeah, and while they're talking, what do you have to say? Because we got a lot of slides to get into. Carlos did a great job on the slides.
Yeah, we're going too slow.
Yeah, okay, let's get
into the next slide here.
Here's the first slide. The economics of clinical research are quite simple. And then there's nothing. So I'm not sure what this even means. Someone said not yet, but planning on buying it soon. Please don't plan too long. You need to do and not plan. Plus, here's the most important part for you. Amazon is having a sale right now. So the book is like $30-something instead of $50. Okay, the economics of clinical research are quite simple. Another question. Okay, we'll get it now. Okay, any more questions? Someone just messaged us, but I can't see it. So, hello, Jackie. How's it going? All right. Thank you for buying the book. Appreciate it. Okay, clinical research is a major source for new drugs, medical devices, and treatments. Typically funded from two sources, federal and private. It's dominated by pharmaceutical companies and a source of business opportunities for various vendors, CROs, and sites. And then career opportunities everywhere. Okay, not just CRAs. Carlos is right, but that's like the household name.
Maybe there's more bullet points on the next slide.
There's like 23 slides, so I'm sure there's a lot of
slide
bullet
might
points.
be more bullet points.
I don't know, but let's talk about this
Expanding.
right now. What's interesting about clinical research to me is it's the source of, it's the bottleneck as well as the source of innovation in research. It's very unique in that sense that it is the part of of drug discovery. It is the rate determining step. So it is the cause for failure and for success in this industry. It's very few things are both of those. Clinical research is, and because of that, there's opportunities everywhere. And because only 1 out of 10 drugs actually get through and get approved, like,
is it really that high? 10%? I would think it would be less.
It's about 1 in 10. I mean, it's in the book, the exact number,
okay.
But that's about close to being accurate. And the failures are actually, and this is what people don't really talk about, but for the sites and CRAs, the failures is actually what feeds the industry.
Sure.
It's what creates the jobs. It's what creates the opportunities. The inefficiencies are what creates the opportunities for the vendors, for the CROs, for the sites, for the CRAs, for the coordinators.
Sure. I mean,
this is why you need to be a generalist, in my opinion.
Sure. And I was going to say, if you eliminated those 90% of failures, so every drug that was brought to the FDA succeeded, so only trials would exist, well, there goes about 90% of the jobs out there. So yeah, sure, I would agree with you. The failures feed the market.
Next slide. Are you comfortable with moving on?
We're on the next slide already.
No,
I guess we're not.
All right, you read this one. You've been patiently waiting for this slide. Slide 4.
I have.
Yes.
I haven't looked at any of the slides previously, so I guess.
Well, here you go. The research site. Let's start there. First of all, let's get real practical with these people. Why did we focus the book? Why did we choose to start the book with the sites, with the site level? Why?
I don't know. Why don't you tell me?
I don't know. I mean, I have a reason, but why? Why did we? And then I'll give my reason.
Why did we start the book with the site level?
Yes.
I don't think we did.
No, we did.
A bird's eye view of the clinical research landscape.
The site level dynamics. When we get into we started with the sites first.
Oh.
So what we did, we get a bird's eye overview of the industry, of regulations, and then we got deep as we could get in keeping a book concise into the site, CRO, sponsor levels, and vendor. Why did we start with the site first?
To expand upon it?
I think the reason we started at the site...
You designed this outline, so I don't know why you're asking me.
I wanted to see what you thought. Okay, so why...
Tell me what you're thinking.
So here's why.
Okay, you tell me.
In my opinion, it's the easiest place to describe, and it's the best entry-level positions opportunity for people out there. The site level. If you can work at a site, you can easily go on to work for a CRO or a sponsor. I'm not sure I could say the same thing about starting at a sponsor or CRO and then going to work at a site. But I think working at a site first and then moving on is much easier for people to do and much more common. And that's why we start at the site level. And at the end of the day, everything that sponsors and CROs and vendors do is always aimed at least in theory, how to make life easier for sites, or how to improve efficiency at sites, or how to increase enrollment at sites, or how to improve compliance at sites. It's always something about the sites. And that's what we do with DSCS. We try to help the sites first. That's why we even have a CRO. That's why we even have the audacity to start a pharmaceutical company. It's 3 years in the making, which is taking forever.
Mm-hmm.
But this is why, because we have the foundation of the site level.
Sure.
What do you think, Chris, as you read these slides?
Well, just to add on to what you're saying there, if I were to guess, after already hearing why you chose sites,
yes,
I would have just guessed because that's what you're most familiar with.
And that's a big number 2. And by the way, everyone should be very skeptical whenever anyone's telling you anything. look at their background. Where did they start? I preach so much about the sites. Look at my background. I started at the site level.
Yeah.
If I started at a CRO or a sponsor, I probably would be preaching about that, but that's not what I know, and that's not what I believe.
And CRAs, though, I mean, we're experiencing this. Many of them have become site owners, right? I would say a third of our clients are CRAs. So a lot of them branch out to be site owners from the CRO side.
That's right.
Or sponsor side.
But it's a lot easier for the coordinators to become site owners than it is for the CRAs.
Yeah, I would agree.
In my opinion.
No, I would agree with that.
All right, so you want to go through these bullet points real quick, and if there's anything important, we give some color.
All right, so private companies, hospitals, universities, or hybrids of these institutions often function as a clinical research site. And that's absolutely true. I can't think of anything else that would work as a research site. Huh? Anything else work as a research site? Bullet 1?
What?
So private companies, hospitals, universities, or hybrids of these institutions work as research sites.
Yeah, what's wrong?
Is there anything else that would be a research site?
Ah, very good, Chris. You're opening up a huge, gigantic can of worms.
Okay, let's open it.
Virtual trials. But we don't want to confuse people. But you're asking me, is there anything else?
Right.
Yes, there is.
But, yeah, virtual trials, that doesn't necessarily mean a site, right? Because you can do a virtual trial with an individual. No, it could be individuals, right? You have, we were just talking about this on the book, where you can go to Google Play, find a study.
Guarantee you, if you look at that 1572 form, there's a site. There's a PI responsible, which means there's a site, and there's a sponsor.
Is there a
and
PI?
There could be the PI and the sponsor is the same thing.
But is a PI necessary? That's a dumb question. Never mind. All right, fair enough. All right, comprised of at least one principal investigator who is responsible for the study at the site level. True. Coordinators also play a major role throughout each study. There's an extra word there we don't need. And of course they do. I can't think of an instance I'm aware of in which there were no coordinator for a trial.
Yeah, it doesn't work. And even if there was, it would be a disaster.
I'm sure there has been where the PI said, I'll just do it all. Right?
Right.
Let's see. Other staff, such as a sub-Is and research assistants, provide support for the PI and coordinator as needed.
That's right. And the site, like we were talking about earlier about the virtual trials, understand that there are so many. If you go on clinicaltrials.gov, there's like 200,000 ongoing studies right now in the United States. Right now.
Right.
You're going to have a lot of those studies are going to have like one center sites where the site is also the sponsor. Right? So we can't make blanket statements necessarily because there's always going to be an exception.
Of course.
And we've just been involved in private side, which is the majority of the space. But, there's exceptions. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because people on LinkedIn and YouTube, they always try to point something out in one of our webinars. Oh, damn, that's not how it works here. Look, I understand. We're telling you in general, right? In like the most practical sense. This is how it is.
Exceptions, not the rule.
Exceptions are everywhere. There's exceptions to anything.
We usually quote the rule, not the exceptions.
Correct. Now, coordinators. This is the key right here. Okay. If you want to work in research, it doesn't matter at what level, you probably would be best served going to be a study coordinator somewhere.
Oh, I completely agree with that.
In my opinion.
Preach that all the time to our students.
Yeah, all the time, right?
Yeah.
And
you want to be a CRA, go work as a coordinator for 6 months first.
And that's not to say that there's not maybe more efficient ways to be a CRA, like quicker.
Right.
But chances are you're going to learn much more about everything, again, talking about being a generalist, by being a coordinator. And it's also much more abundant, like that position's available much more because there's so many sites out there. There's 200,000 studies right now in the United States.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and it most closely aligns CRA and CRC.
Right. Okay, other staff, sub-Is and research assistants.
We already went through this.
So what did we not say about other staff, like sub-Is and research assistants?
There's all kinds of staff. Right? You can have raters. I mean, whatever's required by the protocol.
If you can't be a coordinator, go one step below. Be a research assistant. In the book, we outline common career roadmaps.
Yeah, be a recruiter.
Patient recruiter. We talk about this all the time. Okay. Again, all these things are at the site level. I think the site level was the right place to start the overview of clinical research, and we kind of work from the bottom up. Site, CRO, sponsor, and then vendors, with the macro overall regulatory dynamics there as well. All right. Part 2, we get into phases and designs.
Yeah, only 5 slides in.
Yeah, this is going to be a long webinar.
It's going to be an hour and a half.
Might be an hour and a half. That's okay. We got all day. And if you have questions, just type them in. Okay, when a sponsor, and so what is a sponsor, Chris? You like all these definitions. What's a sponsor? Yeah.
I love how you keep throwing me out there like this.
Okay, what's a sponsor?
Well, the sponsor is the one running the trial, the one who's creating it and presenting it to whomever they are.
Correct.
Whether it be the FDA, an institution, whatever.
The FDA could be a sponsor?
No, sponsor's presenting it.
Oh, okay. Yes, correct. So yeah, anyone paying for the study.
Right.
And it doesn't just have to be pharmaceutical or biotech. It could be a device. It could be a biologics, which are increasingly becoming more common.
It could even be a supplement.
A supplement, a procedure.
And you're not presenting it to the FDA. You're presenting it to somebody, though, I would assume.
Right.
Ownership of some sort.
Like nutraceutical companies do these all the time, where they're doing their internal studies. But we're going to get into the IRBs. They all have to have and follow some, and I'm hoping it's the next part. Okay, no, first we get into the phases. I'm just guessing where we're going.
All right. You looked at these for 3 seconds. You're supposed to know.
Buckle up, folks. It's going to be a wild, bumpy ride.
Huh?
No, not really. All right, 4 phases, right?
Uh-huh.
So, phase 1, I'm hoping there's a chart. No, so we're going to have to go through this. So phase 1, in the book, matter of fact, the book's right here. Let's open it, Chris. That's the one we're giving to our PI as a gift. Right?
Uh-huh.
Phase 1, I don't want to give the wrong numbers out. Try to find where the phases are, where we explain the phases. I think it's gonna right here. Chapter 2. We should have memorized it by now.
Yeah, right.
We had to read it. By the way, the audiobook is coming out hopefully within 2 weeks. The audio's done. We just have like some housekeeping stuff with it, and then Amazon has to approve it. Okay, so the phases. Okay.
What are you looking for specifically?
Phases and designs. So.
Phase 1.
Yeah, phase 1.
Uh-huh. What are you looking for?
No, I was looking for, I guess we're going to have to read it, but I don't want to have to actually read the book in this webinar. A phase 1 study is the safety of a drug or device. Phase 1s are the first in human, okay? They typically are only recruiting a dozen or so patients, maybe up to 100.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, here's the thing. We have a lot of people that want to open sites.
I know what you're looking for now. Here, let me see.
Yeah, I know you know what you're looking for.
Well,
I'll just find it. Tell them why they shouldn't open a phase 1 clinic for all the people that...
Well, that's real simple. It's not going to take me but 5 seconds. So phase 1, you're competing with everybody in the nation because typically there's very few sites. Whereas phase 2, 3, and 4 studies, there's I wouldn't say an abundance, but they're looking for many more sites, and you're only competing with what's geographic to you, local to you.
Right. They're only looking for. I mean, it all boils down to the patients, and that's where they come up with how many sites they need.
Sure, but sometimes they may need 100 patients, but they're only utilizing 2 sites.
Right.
I mean, it's all over the place. But yeah, they don't need a lot of sites typically for phase 1 trials. Usually, it's absolutely no more than 10, right? And usually, it's a couple.
Right. Phase 1 trials are generally conducted at roughly 12 research clinics per study, and that's on the high end. It's really a dozen or less. And then they enroll 10 to 100 study participants. They're looking for the maximum tolerated dose, for the most part, for healthy volunteers. Now, there is an exception for oncology, right? And sometimes you see these phase 1/2 studies. So, for example, in oncology, you see this all the time. They're doing a maximum tolerated dose, but it's not on healthy volunteers. They're also looking at the efficacy and safety on the actual patients themselves. And in those cases, they'll have more patients. But typically, for most drugs that are non-oncology related, it goes from 10 to 100 subjects. And usually, if they're healthy volunteers, you can get that at a dozen sites or less. Once you start getting into the phase 2 and 3, right, we're looking at, like phase 2, we're looking at more safety and a little bit of efficacy. They usually last about 4 to 8 weeks for the actual patients themselves. And then you get into phase 3, and that's usually the phase 2 have a couple hundred participants.
I think lucky may have seen that graph out.
Yeah, I don't think that graph actually fit. Phase 3 are the pivotal trials. They're the ones where the bulk of the money is spent. Chances are, if you're going to be a CRA, you're going to work mostly on phase 3 studies, but of course you're going to have phase 2 as well. Same thing with a site. You're going to see a lot of phase 2 and 3 studies. Phase 3s typically enroll anywhere from 300 to 5,000 patients, so that's why they need more sites. Sometimes 100 sites for a study, and those are long term. So they go. Everything's always safety, but they also go with efficacy and long-term efficacy, which is the most important thing on the targeted patient population. But you know which chart I'm talking about?
Yeah.
We might have to find it.
It's not in here.
Yeah, it didn't make the book for some reason, probably because
Can't read that.
yeah, schedule of assessments. It's not, that one's not really meant to read.
Okay.
It's meant to just get a feel for
What
it looks like.
All right.
Okay. Yes. If you emailed me, somebody's asking, can you call me after the webinar? If I have time, I will. Okay. So, okay. And then you have the phase 4, which we just got one for one of our PIs soon. A brand new site we're starting.
Yep.
In Newport Beach.
Observational.
Observational. Tell them about observational.
Well, they're real world studies. Typically, they just want to see how a patient act. So, the schedule of assessments typically are what the site would do, regardless whether they're participating in a study or not. The patient, and they're looking at how the patient reacts or acts on a certain drug, typically that they're already on. And that would be a real world study. Nothing's really changing other than the sponsor wants to look at the data that the site would be gathering regardless of the study.
Okay.
Essentially.
So these are good for sites and
yeah, they're good for
new
PIs that are research naive.
Okay, good. We got a lot of slides, people.
That's what I'm saying. Hour and a half.
Part 3, regulations. Okay, Chris.
The Food and Drug Administration has
Yes.
new responsibilities. They do.
They do.
One of them being to protect public health by ensuring the safety, efficacy, and security of human and veterinary drugs, biologic products, and medical devices.
Okay, so here's the part where it gets tricky, okay? And we're going to get into these major events in clinical research. They're all in the book also. And we're going to kind of jump back and forth here and there. Here's the thing about studies, all right? Not every study is because of this thing that you see on this slide. And if you're listening on the podcast, I'm talking about the OHRP, all right? It's the Division of Compliance Oversight. All right, so they're the ones in charge of human subject participation. They're like the IRBs. They're in charge of IRBs. The FDA not every study is going to be submitted to the FDA.
No.
But that doesn't mean that the FDA can't audit those studies.
Right.
Right? Because they're also in charge of the OHRP, which is the Office of Human Research Protection, which
Right.
manages IRBs. Every study, whether it's going to be submitted to the FDA or not, needs to have an IRB in place to oversee the ethics.
If there's human subjects involved.
Ethics of the human subjects. Correct. So this is where, like, the regulations are where things really start to get tricky. But I think in the book we did a fairly good job at breaking that down. Right?
I think so.
So the Nuremberg Code of 1947, tell them about this. You're a World War II aficionado.
You can tell them about that.
You don't want to do the Nuremberg Code?
Yeah, with the crap, I can't think of what they were called. The black military subjects that were given syphilis. Well, no, they had syphilis.
No. That's not Nuremberg Code.
Oh.
You're a World War II aficionado. You're confusing everybody on here.
All right, well then you go.
Okay, let's see if we actually get into that. That's Tuskegee.
Oh, there you go.
And it's all in the book, folks. If you're learning anything from this webinar, it's to buy the book.
Or nothing.
All right, Tuskegee the Belmont Report came after Tuskegee. I'll let you talk about Tuskegee. Nuremberg happened after World War II atrocities with the Nazi concentration camp prisoners. The Nazis did experiments on the prisoners. Basically, all those Nazi doctors were convicted of war crimes. And then the Nuremberg Code came out, which basically said subjects need to be voluntary participants in studies. This is why you can't use inmates in studies.
Because of prisoners of war, huh?
Is this presentation relevant to international studies outside of USA? I would certainly hope so, because the fundamentals still apply. And by the way, in the book, we talk about how some countries actually have GCP as the law. In the United States, we don't have GCP as law. It's a guideline. In some countries, ICH GCP is the law. So it's actually more relevant, you can argue, outside of the United States. To whomever's asking. Would you not agree?
Sure.
All right. Declaration of Helsinki. That came out. That's really what put the onus on the IRBs to oversee studies. Then the Belmont Report. This is what you were referring to. The Tuskegee incident.
Right.
Okay. You want to explain that one?
Well, sure. I started.
Okay. Yeah, you started. So just to go ahead and finish that one. I'm going to try to find that chart.
So that began in World War II. Do you recall the year? Like 1942 or 44, 45, so I don't remember.
Let me find the in the book.
Anyhow, began World War II, and there were subjects that were either had syphilis and not told that they had syphilis. Were they given syphilis?
No.
Right. Okay. So they had, and this is in GCP. It's just been a while since I've done my GCP. Anyhow, they were treated for syphilis, or they were given a placebo for syphilis, and they were followed for decades until like 1970, or is it 64? 72. Somebody wrote in. Okay, thank you. And they were followed until then, and there were cures already out on the market for syphilis.
Right.
And they were not provided with these cures. So they could be followed to see how syphilis would affect them.
Yes. So 600 black males, 399 with syphilis, 201 without. It was a 40-year study that started in 1932 by the Public
32.
Health. Yeah. 40-year study
42.
that started in 1932 by the Public Health Service and the Tuskegee Institute. 600 black males, 399 with syphilis, and 201 without were enrolled in a study without informed consent, nor being made aware that they were actually in a study. The men were told they were being treated for bad blood.
Right.
But in actuality, only received medical exams, free meals, and burial insurance, Even when penicillin became available in 1947, this treatment was not administered. And so, yeah, no one was given syphilis because of this.
Right.
But because they weren't told that they had it, they gave it to their significant others,
right.
their kids.
Right.
So in a way, the U.S. government was giving people syphilis in a roundabout way.
And 15 years after this, in an air quote, study began, there was a cure available.
Yeah. And so in 1979, and you know how this was discovered? It was discovered through investigative journalism at the time.
Sure.
And this was done by the government. Okay, so this paved the way for IRBs to approve studies and informed consent forms to explain in simple terms all risks, benefits, possible side effects, protection of vulnerable population. This is what really made IRBs come to the forefront and why the OHRP came about. All right, and then the common rule. This is kind of how these are the major events that kind of evolved GCP as we know it. And someone's commenting there was a movie around 1998 about the study. Bill Clinton was the only president to acknowledge it. Interesting. I did not know that.
No, I did not.
We got to watch that. Maybe we make it required watching
for
the students. But first for Dan and Chris. All right, the common rule came into law in the U.S. This is Title 45 CFR Part 46. All right, this mandate provided requirements for how IRBs and their rosters must be structured and defined key terms. So, okay, the Belmont report said you have to have an IRB. The OHRP is responsible for that. The common rule says, okay, Title 45 CFR Part 46, how IRBs and their rosters must be structured. All right, and this is, you can't just pay pharma execs to sit on the IRB boards. I mean, that would be a disaster if they did. So that's what the common rule, basically. This is what we break it down for you guys. We take complicated, we try to make it simple. All right, it's all in 201 pages.
12.
No, what are you talking about? The book is 200 pages.
What's 12? That was 212 pages.
Well, it's 214, but there's some ads in the back, so it's like it's under 200 pages of content.
Okay.
And that's good. I mean, you know how you have a problem you want to solve, and then you buy a book, and they take like 80% of the time to describe your problem, and it's like, I already know my problem. That's why I bought the book.
Yeah, I want the solution.
Right. So we know the problem for this industry is people don't know very much about it. There's a lot to know. So instead of describing the problem, we just say, here's what you need to know for the most part. And it's not everything you need to know. It's the most important of what you need to know. You need to go explore further everything that you're interested in or where your career is going to take you.
Yeah.
Right.
All the topics in the book are just the tip of the iceberg.
That's right. This is for our PI, right?
Correct.
You got to sign this. You
I don't
have to be the one to sign that one.
Sign
it's more meaningful coming from you.
Uh-huh.
IRB.
What about?
We just talked about them, right? Give them the local.
We can skip this.
No, people here don't know. Okay.
Don't know what?
Central or local IRBs.
What about them?
Well, break it down.
Well, central is usually specified by a sponsor or CRO, and it's study-wide. Local IRB is to an individual site. So typically, universities and hospitals have local IRBs. Individual sites typically do not have a local IRB. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
If you're an owner of a site, you'll always be working with a central IRB.
Right. Unless you partner with a hospital for some reason and they have to use their local IRB.
Right. You would work with a local IRB potentially as an individual site. If you're doing an inpatient study and that hospital you're putting your patients in has a local IRB, unfortunately you have to work with that local IRB as well.
Right.
But you're still working with a central IRB too.
Right. Now, the whole purpose of an IRB is to protect the study participants. Right. All the way from before any study participant are enrolled, they have to approve the protocol. Is the protocol based in solid science, right? Does it pose unnecessary risk to patients?
There are benefits.
there has to be some kind of benefits, which interestingly enough, for phase 1 healthy volunteers, because they're only testing the maximum tolerated dose, the only benefit is compensation.
Yep.
But when you get into the therapeutic studies, like phase 2, 3, and 4, there's a lot of benefits. Do you understand that last comment?
By Ross?
Well, now you just shout them out. Sure.
Everybody can see it.
No.
Can't they?
This is private.
Oh, sorry, Ross.
And now, Ross, you're on the podcast too, and YouTube.
I didn't say last name though.
No, please. We have a question here. We're trying to decipher it.
He just wants to know what does IRB stand for.
Would be good to know what those letters all stand for. Oh, it stands for Institutional Review Board. Okay, that's what IRB stands for. Institutional Review Board. In the book, I mean, this is why you gotta. This is why the book's worth the sub $40 price point.
At this point,
I mean, it's gonna explain all these acronyms for you. If you don't have the book, we need to put the link right here.
yeah, we have in the back. The last pages of the book is all acronyms and abbreviations.
And if we get through, if we have time,
the last pages.
Yeah, if we have time, we'll go through that. All right, so the IRBs, the institutional review boards, they start with the protocol first. Okay, they have to approve the protocol. Then they have to approve the informed consent form, which is the ICF. Any other study materials that are patient-facing, advertisements, whether it's a local or central IRB, this is what the IRB is in charge of. And this includes protocol amendments.
Did you answer the person above's question?
Is this book has specific contents useful in ACRP exam? I would hope so. I have no idea. I never took that exam.
Yeah, but I wouldn't place all of your knowledge on the book alone.
Yeah, I mean, look for what's the alternative to this book to study for the ACRP exam. I don't think there's anything really that good. I've looked. That's why we wrote the book. I think you're going to get a lot of fluff online, which you can buy for free.
But you'll need more than the book to pass the ACRP.
Yes, you're going to need practical applications of the book, which, by the way, we try to make the book practical.
Yeah, I agree.
It's the most, and I'm not saying it because it's our book. It's the most practical book on clinical research.
Well, that we're aware of.
All right, so, okay, part 4, site level dynamics. We did all this to introduce the main stakeholders in clinical research, which are the sites, CROs, sponsors, and then we're going to get into all the vendors too. This can be a long webinar, Chris.
An hour and a half. I already said that.
Are you? Do you have enough cough drops, lozenges?
Do I need cough drops? I'm not coughing.
I will start coughing.
Oh.
Here, you take over. Site level dynamics.
Where are you going?
I'm going to sign this for our PI since you won't.
No, don't sign it. Maybe she wants a clean copy.
Okay, give her a clean.
All right. Prior to even getting in a study, a site must have a few basic requirements in order, such as principal investigator, study coordinator, basic medical equipment, and an office layout that can serve as a suitable location to conduct research, which is all true, right? You always need a PI. The rest, again, we already kind of covered this. I'm sure there's sites out there or principal investigators out there that have taken on a study all by themselves. But most studies, again, that's the exception. The rule is typically you will need these things in order to conduct a trial. Most principal investigators will not have time to serve as a study coordinator. That's just too much busy work for them, typically. And basic medical equipment, if you're interested in what that equipment is, there's a link on the the clinicaltrialsguru.com. There's a link for the basic medical equipment necessary.
Yeah, I think the tab is called Start Your Own Clinic, Get Equipment.
Right.
So it will break it down for you. And in the book, we have a nice infographic on what you need.
There you go.
The nice one Amy made. I even have a picture of a centrifuge in case you were curious. It's right there where I opened it. See, this is the basic equipment needed to open a research site. I mean, we're not going to go through all this, but It's on the website. Okay, should I move to the next slide?
Yeah, unless
Or you
anybody
want to
has-
cover something else?
No, unless anybody has questions about this.
We're about halfway done, folks. So just get a stretch.
All right, move on.
You know, the investigative site must have a PI.
Yeah,
Okay?
you
That's
must.
the absolute minimum requirement for a site. To be considered a site, you need a PI.
And a location.
This is where...
And a location.
Well, no,
You
Chris.
need a location.
Don't make blanket statements.
Okay, again,
Because-
this is the exception to the rule. You
Correct.
need a location.
Correct. But I was just going to explain. Yes, you do need a location
Virtual
and
trials,
a PI.
I understand.
In a virtual trial,
Again, exception to the rule.
but who
That
knows?
could change
One
in the
day
future.
could be the norm.
In the future, but that's not the way we currently.
Correct. We're starting to see some virtual trials now.
Right.
Trickling through. And there are no sites. There's no locations. It's just, but there is a PI.
Sure.
So if you want to distill it to the very minimum, it's PI. And then number 2 would be an actual location. Now, for all intents and purposes, 99.9% of studies are using physical sites.
So when you do 23andMe, you have to sign a consent form.
Right.
Do you think there's a PI?
That's a good question. Yes, I do. I do think there's a PI.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just like when I just refinanced my house
Mhm.
and I used Quicken loans.
Right.
And they're huge, right?
Sure.
And there's a broker on file, and it's the same guy for every single person in the country that gets refied through Quicken loans, which are like thousands a day.
Right.
It's the same guy. So I would assume for 23andMe, there's just a PI or maybe like a group of PIs.
Okay.
Yeah, because it goes to the FDA.
Yep.
And those are observational studies. What 23andMe is observational.
Right.
It's not interventional. So look, maybe we in the book we explain that, but on the webinar, the difference between interventional and observational.
Sure. One's a treatment, one's not.
Yeah. Do you want to break that down, or do you want me to?
Well, I already discussed observational studies.
Right. So interventional is when you're intervening and giving some kind of treatment,
Device,
taking something away.
Mitigation.
Correct. Observational, you're just observing. So in 23andMe, which we're both a part of, we both are 23andMe customers, and by default, we join their study.
Right.
We're part of an observational study, the largest observational study in history.
Yeah, millions.
Yeah. Okay, so Chris is right. Most sites need a location unless it's a virtual trial, which maybe in 2029 will be the norm. I still don't think it will be the norm, but it could be. It could be.
Things move too slowly. 30 years from now, maybe.
30 years. I think that would be safer.
Yeah.
Like gun to my head, I would say 30 years.
Yeah.
For the majority, like for it to be more than 50%
Right.
of studies, I would say give it 30 years. But you're starting to see more and more sponsors are trying to cut costs, and they think virtual trials, and very well could be the case, right?
Mhm.
But for now, you need a PI for a site, and you need a location.
Yep.
And then it could be the PI's private practice. It could be a hospital. It could be a wing of a hospital, a department.
Could be a university.
The site should have a way to get patients.
That's
Right.
usually helpful.
Common medical equipment, just basic stuff, which Chris kind of mentioned and we talk about in the book. And then sponsor preference. Sponsors prefer any site that can use a central IRB that can get tons of patients, or at
Yeah.
least an appropriate amount of patients for them,
Sure.
an acceptable amount of patients for them.
Investigative site. All sites, whether they are standalone or part of a practice, must have several basic components. A waiting room, a coordinator office. Don't take too long doing that. Room for monitors, drug room, lab room, a recommended minimum space of 1,500 square feet. So there's a question. Are there any companies out that help with recruiting patients? Oh, yes, there's several. In my experience, few of them work well. And Dan just stepped out of the room. There's one that's not coming to mind the name of it. So when he comes back, I will address that question again. So going back to the slide, I think it's fairly self-explanatory what these things are. So a waiting room, patients need somewhere to sit and wait to be seen. Usually you want that waiting room to be comfortable and preferably have some sort of entertainment value. because a lot of times these patients are on site for lengthy periods of time. And if they get bored, they're always bored coming to the site, you're going to have retention problems as a site. So you need to offer some sort of entertainment to your patients, because when they're on site for 6 hours or 4 hours, they're just sitting there twiddling their thumbs for 90% of that time. They're going to not want to come back. Coordinator office, and these things can be combined oftentimes. So if you have limited space, you have less than 1,500 square feet, you could combine the coordinator office and a drug room, or the drug room and a lab room, or I've even seen sites do all three, though I wouldn't recommend that. And 1,500 square feet allows for a little bit of growing space as well as storage space, which you'll need both of those things. I just spoke to a client or was it yesterday? Today or yesterday, that they're moving into an 800 square foot space, which is going to be tight, but they described it and it'll work, but they have they can do maybe 2 studies there because they have limited storage area. So yeah, you want to be able to expand. You don't want to be confined to only being able to do 2 studies. So there's a question there on the bottom of the screen. I can't think of the company's name. I always forget their name.
Acurian?
Not Acurian. I said that most they don't do a good job. What's the one where we met with those guys? They have a database.
Patient recruitment?
Yeah.
The big ones are Acurian, Praxis.
Yeah, but it's not those. They don't do a good job. Study Kick, that was the one.
We didn't meet with them.
No, but
we met with one of their. Supposedly, we met with the guy who had the idea for it, but then someone took it from him.
From what we hear, we've never utilized their service. Well, I did for one study, but it was through the sponsor.
Study Kick, yeah, we used them with Monica.
But they seem to work the best of the 3 that you just mentioned, in my opinion.
Yeah, they're the most site friendly, I think.
Right.
Like, see, here's the thing, and this could be a whole nother webinar, patient recruitment, which actually it has been, I think, but we'll do it again. It's been a while. And no, I haven't heard of Galen or Galen, however you pronounce it. I have never heard of that. There's a bunch of groups out there. Yeah, Acurian.
Yeah, that's correct. No,
it's with an A instead of an O. Yeah. Acurian. There's a bunch of groups out there. The big ones are the ones I mentioned: Acurian, Praxis, Study Kick.
And that would be the one I would recommend, Study Kick, of those 3.
And here's the difference. Here's why. Even that one's not great, but it's compared from those 3, it's the best. The first 2, Acurian and Praxis, they make their money from the sponsors.
Yeah, they're expensive.
They're very expensive. And so, they've gotten these deals with pharmaceutical companies because they're the established ones. So they'll send you leads. Most of the time, those leads are not great, but it's the best thing that's available. So sponsors pay them a ridiculous amount of money for their services. Study Kick is a different pricing model.
It's more site friendly.
Yeah, they also share the same model as Acurian and Praxis. They'll charge sponsors. That's where they make the big money. But they also will work individually with the sites at a much, much more heavily discounted rate, which makes sense because sites would not pay.
They still have a costly option, which I know you know a PI that utilizes them.
Yeah, and he's very happy with that. With Study Kick.
He pays them on the premium, which is I think $3,000 a month.
$3,000 a month, and he stays very busy from that.
Right.
But you need somebody constantly on
calling the leads,
following up with the leads,
yeah,
pre-qualifying them. Bottom line, patient recruitment is best if they come from the PI or referring physician's private practice. It becomes significantly worse when you talk about any other strategies, including using these vendors. So PI private practice first, sub-I private practice also good, referring physicians also good. But then once you start getting into advertising and recruitment firms, it just gets a lot less effective.
Yep, totally agree.
We're almost there, Chris. You've been so patient.
I don't know about almost there.
I appreciate it so much.
10 slides to go.
Thanks for not having me do this on my own. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I've done 2 slides.
You feel like one more? Basic equipment. You love talking about equipment.
I do.
No.
I just sent everybody to the website.
Right, but look how many people are on the phone right now. There's more people on the phone than in here, so they're not going to go to anything. So,
The clinicaltrialsguru.com.
right, let me just read it
Just
for you
memorize
guys.
that and go there later.
Let me read it for you guys. Basic equipment a site should consider having. All right.
Not consider. You should have.
You should have. Absolutely. If you want to get a study.
Yeah.
ECG machine.
12 lead.
12 lead ECG machine. Thank you. A locking steel cabinet.
Yep.
What is this for, Chris?
Storing your drug.
Storing
your
the
IP.
drug. A chair for drawing blood. Otherwise known as a phlebotomy chair.
Yeah. One's on both.
What's that?
I'm on both, it says. Right here. I'm on both.
I'm on both. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Ambient centrifuge.
Ambient centrifuge.
Preferably, you would want a refrigerated centrifuge, but much more costly.
Yes.
You can get a study without a refrigerated centrifuge.
We're kings of practicality. Chris more so than me, but I'm a pretty practical person too. But Chris is like on a whole nother level, right? That's accurate.
That's true.
But we're both very practical compared to the average site owner.
Right.
And so we don't want you spending money for unnecessary stuff. You can spend money later when you're profitable. Other equipment may be requested by the sponsor, but is sometimes offered by the sponsor. All right.
Like refrigerated centrifuges.
Yeah. Now we're going to get into the certificates that you need. Okay. Any site staff member that is working at your site needs to be GCP certified. All of them. Also, any CRA needs to be GCP certified. Right.
Yep.
Per company SOPs. Sometimes it's for every study. Sometimes it's once a year. Sometimes it's once every 2 years.
This is all
Sometimes
true.
it's for every study. I don't know if I said that already.
But your SOPs at site level may be once every 2 years, but the sponsor may or CRO may require once a year.
Unpack that.
So you just need to comply with what the sponsor requests. It's not much to unpack. You just have to comply with the sponsor if you want to do the study.
Please, Chris, unpack it a little bit more.
I don't know what more to unpack.
Let's imagine someone knows nothing about what you just said. GCP. How can they get it? Do they need to pay for it?
Oh.
There's a lot of vendors out there willing to take your money. You could pay hundreds of dollars and get GCP certified, or you can find it for free and get GCP certified.
Yeah, there's somebody asking that question right now.
See, I know what they're going to ask before I even read it.
Yeah. Yes, you can get it.
Unpack.
You can get it for free. Contact us.
We have the links, all right? There's tons of groups out there that are willing to take your money, right? But we'll do it for free. Regarding GCP, what is the best one to do? Is GCP free? Yes.
Well, the best one to do is City. What's that?
CITI?
Yeah. Is that right?
We have two in the CRA Academy, 2 vendors. I keep forgetting which ones.
Well, there's one that's oftentimes required by sponsors.
City. That would be City.
City. Okay, yeah. City.
CITI.
That's the best one to do. But most sponsors they don't have a specific. They just want to see a certification. And oftentimes sponsors have their own. You have to do their own training, own GCP certification when awarded the study. They'll provide you with a link to their own training slides for GCP. We have a link for a free one for City. Just reach out.
Email me or yeah. I mean,
well, you're just gonna forward it to me, so email me.
No, I can take care of it. Like if I'm seated, I just don't do it when I'm in the car. But
okay.
Or you can just Google it. I mean, I don't mind being a human Google for people, but you can just Google CITI Good Clinical Practice Training.
GCP certification.
It's free.
No, not all are free. Not
right.
all cities are free. Most of them charge.
Correct.
But we have a link to a free one.
Yeah. Sponsors will require. Okay, AIDA. Anyone shipping.
Yeah, you don't want that $250,000 fine.
Labs. Explain it.
So anybody who ships in violation of AIDA certification, so shipping dangerous goods, the fine is $250,000 if you're not certified to do so. So you certainly want to have certification. If you're going to ship lab samples, dry ice specifically, or any lab sample, you should have certification.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you like hefty fines.
Finally, CLE or CLE Waiver. I had a question today from one of our partners. IATA training, that's free too, right?
That is free.
Yeah.
That government provides that.
Okay. Yeah, that one's free. Okay. CLE. I just talked to a partner today in Vegas. All right. They just brand new site, startup. They don't have a CLE waiver yet. I said, get one. Apply now.
Yeah, it takes a while.
Takes a while to get it. You need to have a CLE waiver at the site. If you're working with a doctor who already has a CLE waiver for their private practice, that's still not okay. You need a CLE waiver for the site, but you can probably get away with it for a little bit. But you need one for the site.
Well,
whatever the site name on the 1572.
I don't know if you do, though, honestly.
So here's the rule. I've talked to CRAs, and I'm the same way when I go monitor. Whatever the site name on the 1572 is, I better see a CLE waiver or a CLE for that name.
See, because I think it should be acceptable if the PI is the lab manager, so we'll have the PI's name on the CLE waiver. I think that should be okay. I know you're doing CRA work, but I don't see why that shouldn't be okay. I think if you want to be safe, like Dan's saying, you want the site name on it.
Yeah.
You're going to have I've gotten in arguments with CRAs over this, and they don't know the rules.
Yeah, we don't want someone telling their monitor, Chris said it was okay.
No, you don't want to do that.
That's why I say what I say.
Sure. I agree.
But yes, you could probably get away with it, but to be on the safe side, 1572, whatever the site name is, the CLE waiver needs to be in that name.
Because the whole purpose of a CLE is to say the site is in compliance with CLE, right?
Right. Or
So-
CLE waiver.
Right.
Most of you guys can qualify, and gals can qualify for a CLE waiver.
Right.
Okay, it's cheaper also and easier to get.
Yeah.
Okay, getting studies. We've done webinars on this. If you're a site, you gotta go to clinicaltrials.gov, find studies, go network with people, get studies.
It's
Right?
always difficult getting started.
You'll get a CDA, an NDA, then you'll get a feasibility questionnaire, then you'll get a site selection visit. If you hire us as your consultants, we'll walk you through all this and we'll get the studies for you.
Much
Dude.
easier getting started with our help.
That's right. Shameless plug, but
It's true.
not so much. And it's true. Okay, source documents. Wow. I mean,
Well,
yeah, we can do a hour-long webinar just on source, especially when we get into eSource, which
know.
we won't really get into here.
so
In the book we do.
way going off topic. Well, not completely off topic, but I don't know what I was looking at today, but it said Alcoa Alcoa-C-C.
Wow.
And it was complete and consistent. So is there a
Wow.
new amendment to,
No.
or is this just something a sponsor had made up?
Something probably a sponsor has made up, or a
Okay.
vendor that's trying to get important.
Okay. I tried to.
Consistent is still, and that's, you know what? Okay, I haven't thought about it enough, but it just sounds like it's just too much.
Right?
You know?
Eventually, this will be like 16 letters long.
Yeah, and then we'll have to write another book. And I really, guys,
Don't want to do that at this point in time.
Chris, gals, I don't want to write another book for at least another year. I'll write some like hobby books, but not clinical research book
Right.
for at least another year, if not longer. So I haven't heard that before. Alcoa
I had
C,
not- I had neither.
Alcoa-C.
I did a little Googling around. I couldn't find it. So
Yeah, somebody's just trying to be important and make up
yeah, it
something.
was from a sponsor.
Okay, well maybe that's their own like internal
Sure.
SOP.
Yeah.
That could be different, and that's actually a good example.
Right.
Whatever your company SOP is, that's the rules for you.
Yep.
If it's excessive to what GCP says, but you're still working for that company, that's what you've got to follow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what an auditor is going to hold you accountable to.
Yep.
Right? So source, we can spend so much time on this.
What are we going to?
No. What do you think is the most important aspect of source?
Making sure it's right.
It's
capturing everything that the protocol is demanding.
You do such a good job when the students are here, the interns, on explaining source and Alcoa.
Mm.
And by the way, next Tuesday we're gonna have Finally come here. She agreed. because we're gonna have a full
Yeah.
house.
Okay.
She's coming with 2 cameras. We got to pay her a little extra, but
Is Giselle coming here Tuesday as well?
yes.
Yeah. All right.
We got a lot of content for Guru Nation coming up soon. We got 2 videographers next week.
Mhm.
But you do such a good job, and we're gonna actually capture that
Okay.
next week. But explain, like in 3 minutes, maybe.
3 minutes. My goodness.
What's a source?
I don't talk for 3 minutes. It's great.
Explain for 30 seconds.
Okay. Well, like I already said, the source needs to be designed in such a way. So it depends, right? As I explain to the students often, source is every document that's captured in regards to the patient at site, right? But a lot of times the site or anybody speaking to the site, when they say source, they mean oftentimes the documentation designed by the site to capture data that there is not industry standardized documentation. That's probably highly confusing to anybody that's somewhat research naive. But source documentation, again, could mean 2 different, depending on the context, 2 different things, right? It could mean every document in regards to the patient, or it could mean the documents that the site prepares for the data that there isn't standardized documentation. No?
I agree wholeheartedly.
Wholeheartedly.
If you buy the book, did I mention this book is fantastic
You
already?
said that about 50 times, I think.
And look at your picture on the back, man. Very handsome face. Very handsome face, Chris.
And you made fun of this picture.
That's a good one. Okay, so Alcoa-C, attributable, legible. Do you want to play word association?
No.
I say it and you give me like 2 words.
No.
So do you want to just define it then?
Sure.
Attributable,
Who does it belong to?
legible,
Can we read it?
contemporaneous,
Does it make sense in the pattern of things?
original,
I think that's self-explanatory. I don't know.
original,
It's original. I don't know how to. You can't define a word with itself, so it has to be self-explanatory.
the source, accurate,
Yeah, same thing as original. It needs to be accurate.
complete.
Also, self-defining.
Wow, this is great. Great game we played.
Told you I didn't want to play that game.
Another question. Hey guys, if the data is CT, MRI images, or EEG files, are those files the source documents? Yes. 21 CFR Part 11, Electronic Systems, says it's the equivalent of paper.
Yes, it does.
And now if you print it, the original is still the digital copy. If you can e-sign it, that's the original. If you print it, it's not the original, but it still could be part of the source. Just to make things more confusing for people.
So I got a question.
Okay.
So you're working with
Nice design here too on the.
yeah, that's nice.
Carlos did good.
So you're working at a site right now as a CRA,
I am.
and it's university.
Yeah, I have right now I'm closing out 2 sites, but I have 5 sites, man.
Okay, but the university is the one I'm interested in.
Yeah, that one's exciting.
The source documents are all in the electronic medical record, right?
Yeah,
EMR.
but they print them out.
Okay, so in order to make those originals, do they certify them?
They do.
Okay.
They're all signed by whoever.
And so when they're signed, does that make them an original?
It makes it a certified copy. The original is still.
Does it work the same as an original?
Yeah, because we don't get access to the EMR per their SOP, so we get certified copies.
Okay.
And what the PI is signing when they sign that is that they certify that it's the original.
Right. So the FDA would view that as an original.
Yes.
Okay.
I've seen the term trial master file used in job descriptions. Are these source documents? No, Jason. Oh, since Chris got in the habit of just naming people, you say his last name if you want.
I'm not saying anything.
Okay, I can't even pronounce it, but Jason, no, but it's a great question. You probably need the CRA Academy. Trial master file is regulatory documents at the sponsor level So think of it as a regulatory binder for every site participating in that study.
So
That's what a trial master file is. When you're a site and you do a study, you have a regulatory binder for that study.
So
when you're a sponsor and you have a study with 100 sites, you have 100 regulatory binders that go into a trial master file.
So I'm going to expand on Jason's question.
But Jason, do you agree he should be a CRA Academy student?
Yes, absolutely.
July 2019 is enrolling.
So expanding on his question, I'm gonna add a little more difficulty to it.
We got a lot of questions this group.
So
we'll stay on as long as we need to.
The trial master file holds in documentation that's been there's been a correspondence, right? Regulatory. It could be SAEs, right? Well,
okay.
Yeah. But an SAE would be a source document.
Okay.
Right? So it could hold some source documents. Some. Typically used for regulatory, right? But if there's a communication back and forth about an SAE, that's typically a source document because it's on a particular patient.
It's a copy of the source.
Right. Yeah. But that would be stored in the TMF.
Correct. And sometimes TMFs will have copies of the informed consent signed.
Sure.
That's a source too.
Yep.
Good point, Chris. See, this is why this is confusing.
Yeah, this is confusing to me.
It's no wonder why people who are new to this industry are so overwhelmed and intimidated. Is because that's the way it is.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's by design. I don't think it's by design. I just think it's such a convoluted industry.
It's exactly right. There's so few things that are standardized.
And this is, again, we didn't write this book for our health. If anything, it took years off my life. Maybe months. We wrote this for you guys. Okay? This is...
Oh, it hurt my stomach.
I'm being serious.
Okay.
I wish I had this book when I started out in 2005 as a study coordinator who knew nothing.
All right, thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie. I know you got to run. We're here, man.
There's another question, I think.
If we have access to EMR, thank you, Jackie. Another person asked, if we have access to an EMR, do we need to stamp the printouts as certified copy? No. The PI is supposed to sign that it's a certified copy. But if you have access to the EMR, you don't need a certified copy. You just have the access to the EMR.
So are you a CRA, Nicole?
If you're a CRA, you just confirm doing SDV and SDR, source data verification, source data review, which we talk a lot about in the book, which we're still not on that part on this webinar. I mean, Carlos, great job, by the way. But no, I'm not a CRA. So this person, I'm assuming they're a coordinator. So if they have access to an EMR...
Well, they better have access to it then.
Well, some places don't. Some places only the PI
Well, that's true.
access.
I'm thinking in terms of where that's the data that's being used for the study. Right, okay.
Yeah, so the PI needs to sign that it's a certified copy and file it in the source binder.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, CRO sponsor dynamics, right? We talk a lot about this in the book. The main function of a CRO is to provide monitoring services for study sponsors over the participating sites. We're starting to see sponsors getting much more involved in their studies thanks to the 2016 GCP revisions.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see what the slides make us talk about.
Almost to your bottle of water.
CROs can help. I'll get a Diet Coke. Thanks, Chris. Thank you very much. CROs can help a sponsor with all of their research needs. This includes, but it's not limited to, and it may not be all these things. Like I said, sponsors pick and choose what they need help with. They determine what's their core competency, what can the CRO provide, what did the sponsor feel like they can do a better job of. In 2016 GCP revisions, the FDA basically mandated that sponsors are responsible for the conduct of the study for all their sites, not the CRO. So the sponsor, if there's ever an issue with a study, the FDA holds the sponsor responsible and also the PI for that individual site responsible. So they used to be able, they being the CROs, used to be able to put that all off on the CROs. Right? If there was an issue in the past with the FDA, the sponsor would say, hey, we outsourced that to a CRO, so that's not our problem. Well, in 2016, the FDA said you can't do that anymore. So now the sponsors are getting much more involved in their studies. So, but they still outsource many things to CROs, and this includes monitoring, helping with designing the protocol, choosing the vendors. A lot of times the sponsors don't have experience choosing vendors for clinical studies, providing the CRAs. I'm a contract CRA for a boutique CRO working with mostly international sponsors. And, they rely, because the sponsors are international, they rely on the CRO for everything. Except designing the protocol, but they rely on them for everything else. And so these are the cases where CROs play a huge role.
Especially, like you're saying, the sponsors are research naive. They're vital.
Correct.
They have that guidance.
You want to take this slide? We have a few left. We're getting there, Chris. I'm so proud of you.
Well, thank you, Dan. 4 left. Sponsors. When it comes to running a study, the FDA considers the sponsor responsible for the entire. Didn't you just discuss this? For the entire conduct and management of the clinical trial.
I did. Uh-oh. What's going on with your computer?
Looking for viruses. Sponsors take an active role in their own studies, and again, you already discussed this. Approve CRAs, monitoring reports, sites, and vendors. So I don't know if you discussed that, but they're responsible for everybody working on the trial.
Correct. The most important thing is probably this last line. Approve CRAs, monitoring reports, sites, and vendors.
Mm-hmm.
Let's make it practical. This is our specialty.
I just did.
No, I know.
I'm responsible for everybody working on the trial.
Now I'm gonna tell a story.
All right.
Okay, that's what I mean by that.
Okay.
There was someone that called me the other day. She lied on her CV that she has experience as a CRA.
Does this happen often?
Yes. Now, mind you, this is not one of our students.
Right.
Not to say our students haven't done this, because they have, which is bad student.
Yeah.
But this one, I don't even know her. She just called me. She lied on her CV. She got approved to do an oncology study. She did a few reports.
Huh?
She wrote some monitoring reports. You have to if you're a monitor. And the sponsor now wants to talk to her. And they haven't approved those reports. So the sponsors are supposed to approve the CRA. So just because a CRO hires you doesn't mean that you're safe. You have to actually do a good job, or else the sponsors are going to say, hey, who is this person?
So
let me see their CV.
They were not impressed with her reports.
No, not at all.
And go figure, she had no experience.
It's very hard to fake this. And we're going to get into the monitoring process a little bit too, I hope. No? No, then we have to talk about it now. The most important part. Here's what monitors do. We're now in the monitoring part. There's 3 things monitors are responsible for and nothing else. Source, regulatory, and investigational product. Okay? That's it. If you do those 3 things, you know how to be a monitor. Just need to know, yeah, I see you moving your head. That's, it's correct. I vetted this.
Okay.
So
which one of those categories would...
Source, regulatory, and investigational product.
Which one of those categories would patient safety fall
under? Source data review.
Source.
Yeah. Okay. Or investigational product.
Okay.
Depends if it's about the IP, right?
Right.
Or regulatory if it's a SUSAR. I mean, it's all of them.
Okay.
Okay. So that's the CRA's role. Now, they go to a site, they do all those things. They look at the source, they look at the regulatory, they look at the investigation product. They do 2 activities when it comes to source. SDR and SDV.
Do we know what those things stand for?
Source data review for SDR and source data verification.
Which one of those 2 can a monkey do?
For SDV. Now, SDV, very easy.
So a monkey could do it?
I don't think a monkey can, but I do think...
A well-trained monkey.
I do think a high school dropout can do SDV.
Maybe even a grade school dropout?
I don't know. I think you were starting to push it at that point.
Okay.
But a source data verification is basically you're looking at the source and you're confirming it with what is in the EDC system.
And I mean, no offense to any CREs listening. Dan works as, I even work as a CRA a little bit.
Yeah,
so
you do work. You're going to be working a lot as a CRA for our own
I'm
CRO.
talking in the past a little.
Yes.
So
So SDV is easy.
I mean nothing by the jokes.
SDV, a lot of people think they can fake being a monitor because they're like, how difficult is it to look at source and make sure it matches the EDC?
Yeah, SDV is really easy.
That's easy, and that's not why they're paying CRAs the big salaries. At least I hope you're getting a big salary if you're a CRA, because you deserve it. Sometimes you don't get it. SDR is source data review. And source data review is where you earn your paycheck. Source data review is understanding, first of all, the protocol itself, understanding GCP, understanding Alcoa-C, maybe with another C, understanding the dynamics of that particular study
I have a funny question.
and the site, and making sure all these things are in compliance with each other and the protocol, and making sure that the safety of the patient is priority number one for that site.
So question.
So that's SDR. That's what makes it hard. ConMeds, SAEs, AEs, medical history. You got to know these things. You got to almost be a specialist in these medical conditions.
All good and accurate. Now, question. Do you have to read the protocol to know the protocol?
Chris, I'm tired. Why don't you answer your question?
No, I'm asking you specifically.
Do you have to read the
Well,
protocol
To know the protocol.
to know the protocol? So the answer is yes, you do, but also no, you don't. So yes, you should, because I want to put it on the record that that's what I said. No, you don't. There's something called the schedule of assessments, right?
Schedule of events.
And
goes by a number of names.
the most important thing is the inclusion-exclusion criteria.
Right.
Because you want to make sure that only the correct patients are being enrolled. That's obvious safety issues there. And also data integrity issues. And then the schedule of assessments. And then if you have a working understanding of GCP, you can get by for a little while. Eventually, something's going to catch up with you.
So it's not a question from the site, which you have to read the protocol.
It's not a strategy that you should rely on. It's a strategy that can get you by, get you out of some tight situations. But you should eventually really become a master of that protocol.
You should.
If you're the CRA.
Questions.
And this myself included. I'm becoming a master of my protocols now with the studies I'm monitoring.
Wait, you are?
I absolutely am.
Have you read all the protocols?
At this point, I've read 2 of the 3, but I haven't done monitoring visit on the other one that I haven't read yet.
Fair enough.
So I'm good. And I have Kobe driving me to that site, so I read the protocol.
On the way there.
Yep. Thankfully, they're relatively easy protocols. Yep. Even the oncology study.
Really?
Yeah, pretty straightforward.
Okay,
we're almost done, I think. No.
3 more slides.
Chris, take over, man.
No.
Remote oversight.
I read the last one. Okay.
Did you?
Yeah. Remote oversight. Electronic source allows sponsors to view and analyze their data faster than ever before.
This is true. Fact.
Yeah, that is fact. They shut down studies quicker than ever before.
Also a fact.
Yeah. Sponsors can choose to amend it. Sponsors can choose to amend or shut down a study as needed.
That's right. That is what's called adaptive trial.
Yep.
All right. They can actually change the protocol, but using real world analytics, real time analytics, to enhance patient safety primarily.
And is the drug effective or the device?
Correct.
Let's see. Electronic sources open the door for remote monitoring, or doors, as the case may be.
Multiple doors.
Yeah. Let's see. Risk-based monitoring can help reduce CRA workload.
So I will talk about that, but read the last one. You're almost done.
Electronic consents help sites comply with IRB regulations. Yes, they do.
This is the longest webinar we've ever done, and we're not done.
Almost an hour and a half.
Hopefully someone's still there.
There's 24 people still there.
Wow. If you're listening to the replay on YouTube or the podcast, email me with the subject line. I listened to the entire webinar. That has to be your subject. I listened to the entire webinar, and I will pick one at random and get a signed copy of the book.
Ah, very nice.
But only Chris will sign it.
No.
He hasn't signed any, so only Chris. Oh, no, we'll both do it then. How about that?
Yeah.
And Chris will go to UPS store and deliver it.
That's fine.
Oh, okay, really?
Yeah.
I had to do that yesterday.
Yes, I was going to say you did it yesterday.
Okay, we'll do it together next Tuesday. Okay, so here's the thing about risk-based monitoring. Everyone confuses risk-based monitoring with remote monitoring, and in the book we kind of explain the differences between the two. And again, in practical terms, the subtitle of the book, "The Comprehensive Guide to Clinical Research: A Practical Handbook for Gaining Insight into the Clinical Research Industry," okay, by Dan Sfera and Chris Auber. We talk about risk-based monitoring and remote monitoring. Right. People confuse the two. They're not synonyms. Okay, remote monitoring means you don't go on site to monitor. Risk-based monitoring means the monitoring plan is different for each site. Traditional monitoring means 100% source data verification for every site. That's traditional monitoring, is 100% source data verification for every site. Risk-based monitoring is different amounts of source data verification for every site based on their risk profile. Right. The reason I'm dabbling in monitoring is I need to learn a lot of it myself. I'm trying to be a generalist too. I spent a decade at the site level as a coordinator, as a business owner, as a SALBI even. I wanted to get into monitoring to teach students better, to be more of a generalist, to improve my skill set, to help us build our CRO better. Yeah. Right? So now I get to be exposed to my first ever risk-based monitoring study. And I'll report how it goes as it moves along. Will it make my job easier? Will it make my job harder? Do I think it's going to put people's jobs in jeopardy? All right? I don't necessarily know the answers to those. I can speculate, but I don't know. And I don't think really anyone knows yet. Okay, but that's what risk-based monitoring is. The idea is every site is going to have a different monitoring plan based on that site's individual risk profile. Think of that risk profile as a credit score for that site. So if you're a bank and someone comes to you with an 800 credit score, like Chris Auber has, okay? I think you have like an 850, right?
No.
Not to put your business out on Main Street, but I think you have like a 800 credit score.
Something like that.
It's something crazy, right?
It's 832, I think.
It's humble brag by Chris. 832. Okay. I'm going to treat him, if I'm the bank, I treat him differently than someone that's coming at me with a 500 credit score. Right?
You can have a 500. I think the lowest, well, maybe.
Whatever.
Very low.
You get what I'm trying to say. Your risk profile is different.
Of course.
So it's the same thing with sites. When sponsors are looking, because of all these analytics they use, right? A sponsor can look at site A and site B and say, okay, this one needs 100% source data verification. We don't really trust them. Their risk profile is high. Site B only needs 50% source data verification and just focus on these aspects.
Right. Including exclusion criteria and the GCP consent.
Or whatever their algorithms tell them to focus on.
Right.
Okay. 2 more slides.
Yep.
Jobs. You wrote the book on this. You wrote this section.
I did.
Chris, it's all you.
Why does it seem like it's all me lately? Let's see. Jobs in the research industry. There are countless career opportunities in clinical research. These include recruitment affairs specialist, clinical research coordinator. So the first is a good step to the second.
Recruitment affairs specialist.
I'm going to come.
We're going to come back. Recruiter?
Yeah, we're going to come back and talk about them.
Okay.
Recruitment affairs specialist leads well into clinical research coordinator. Clinical research associate. So the CRC leads well into the CRA, and then the principal investigator. Unless you have a doctorate of medicine, right? It's going to be difficult to be a PI as a CRA.
PI.
Yeah, so one leads into the other, right?
Oh, okay. No, yeah. The natural progression is from CRA is not PI.
No.
It's lead CRA or project manager or contract CRA.
Though there are some CRAs that are medical doctors. So
Right, but let's not confuse people.
I'm just saying
They're not. How many CRAs do you know that go on to be PIs?
None
many. That I've met in 15
not
years
many,
of doing this.
Not many.
I'll bet you can't even name one.
You're right, I couldn't.
Okay, so 0. So no.
I talked to one at an investigational meeting.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Couldn't name them though.
No, but in all seriousness, the natural progression from a CRA is to be a lead CRA.
Sure, project manager.
Sometimes a project manager if they don't want to travel as much, or a contract CRA if they want to get paid more and have more freedom.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I mean, I really think if you're a CRA for more than 5 years, you should really consider contract CRA. It's a little riskier because you're not technically employed by anyone. You're self-employed. But if you can get enough contracts to keep yourself busy, you can double, even triple your income.
Yeah, just save for when you don't have a contract.
Right?
Yeah.
And then if you lose your contracts and you want to go back to some stable job, you can.
The problem is when the market's slow, that's when it becomes more risky, right? Because there may not be any jobs available direct. They're having hard enough time for all their direct employees finding work for them, so they're not hiring more. That's the only risk involved, right? When things slow down.
This is why, again, back to the thesis, which is now like the thesis of every webinar: be a generalist.
Sure.
Do more, learn about more stuff, do more. Okay, so these are some common jobs in the industry. Did we break down everyone?
No, recruitment affairs specialist is just a recruiter for the site, right?
Patient recruiter.
Yep, you present yourself to the site. If you have no research experience, you want to get in the field, go to a site local to you and ask, hey, ask the site owner, would you be interested in allowing me to recruit for patients for your site? Most sites will say yes. I think we've discussed this a number of times in other formats.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, if you do a good job recruiting, they may hire you directly and might have you work on site, eventually working into a coordinator position. If you aspire to be a CRA, this is a good route. You become a coordinator, as we discussed earlier in this podcast. Work as a coordinator for 6 months, a year, 2 years. I've seen many advertisements for CRAs in which they specifically state you have to have been a coordinator at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So
see, this is why we started the book and this webinar on that topic, pretty much.
So sponsors or CROs, they very much agree with what Dan and I are saying, or this is why we're saying it. Coordinator is a great intermediary step to becoming a CRA.
Correct.
I think that's covered enough.
Do most sites have the coordinators recruiting patients along with the PI?
Some do. I wouldn't say most.
I wouldn't say. I don't think you can say most for sites for anything. Honestly, no. There's just the variation is like, I don't know what to compare it to, but
surely some do.
Yeah, I mean you can say many, but I don't think you could say most in regards to sites about anything.
Right.
Many sites have coordinators recruiting patients. Many sites use recruitment specialists. Many sites use the assistants to recruit. Many sites, quite honestly, don't do anything as far as recruiting. They just hope to get patients somehow through their site.
Right.
Like through a reception. They don't have a process. That's many, I don't think it's most for anything in this industry with sites.
Yep.
That's what I've come to learn over the last, I think I'm going on like 14 years in this industry. Yeah, going on 15 soon.
Wow.
And I'm learning because I was just, for the first decade, I was just in my own bubble. I've just only recently started getting out of my bubble. like going to universities, we're now with our consulting, we're exposed to a whole bunch of different site models.
Yep.
And we're starting to learn that most is, we can't really say what's most,
Right.
you know. That's what we're starting to learn.
All right, last slide.
Last slide, are you ready? And then we have a Q&A session. Common vendors. Here's the links. Well, I don't know if the links. The book has the links. Carlos is very smart. He said if you want the links, you got to go to the book.
Yeah, good job, Carlos.
But just in case you're listening and you don't want to buy the book, although you should, the link for GCP, while I'm looking, just kind of finish it off, Chris.
The book includes IATA, GCP, and NIH training links, which Dan's currently looking for. Other reference material, which all research professionals should be familiar with, is also included in the book. These things would include interactive web response system vendors, central lab vendors, central institutional review boards, or IRBs, commonly used acronyms. So we're not going to go through all of this. But if you should buy the book, you will see all of this.
You want to go through some commonly used acronyms just for the people listening?
No.
There's a lot.
There is a lot. The list is like 2.5 pages long.
Here's the links, okay? IATA, MayoMedicalLaboratories.com. That's the website. GCP, gcp.nidatraining.org. NIH, which you have to pay like $40, I think, for protecting human research subjects, which is optional. Okay, is phrptraining.com. There's a whole bunch of other links in the book. Acronyms, let's give them some. We got to give them something. People are going to buy the book anyways.
IRB.
We give somebody the acronym
Institutional Review Board.
Correct. Very good.
Yeah, we gave one.
Okay, that's the same question. Okay, let's just give one.
I did. Institutional Review Board.
Let's give one more. We didn't say.
Okay.
I'm going to quiz you.
You are you?
We kind of talked about this one already.
FDA.
No. ePro. ePro.
The electronic patient reported outcome.
All right. Do you want to give them a 5-second definition?
So sure. So PROs. It's going to be more than 5 seconds. PROs are standardized assessments in which the patient fills out their opinion on things, right? Is the drug helping? Are they feeling better? Whatever it might be. And an electronic version would be in like an e-diary or online or on their phone, however they're accessing this the electronic platform. So yeah, it's there's paper versions and then there's electronic versions.
Very good. Anyone else have questions? We are going to wrap up. We have 2 calls to make right now.
Oh, did you take that one gentleman's number that early on said that, hey, I want to talk to you?
Oh, no. We'll get 3 calls. Okay. Let's take this one down.
What is it? The first one, I think.
Where you guys have time to type in questions if you have any. And thanks for sticking by and through this webinar. It went on longer than we thought. Usually they're an hour.
Said an hour and a half. But it went on just what I thought it would.
Yeah, I thought we can do it in 30 minutes.
You're nuts.
I know. Get the book, guys. Comprehensive Guide to Clinical Research. You know what? Where's the link to the book? You have it here? I'm going to put the link in the chat room. How do you use your computer for this, Chris?
What do you want?
The link to the book.
I don't even know the link to the book.
Let's get it from the clinical trials.
I would just type in Amazon, the name of the book.
I have the direct link here. And then we will get to the phone calls in a second.
Somebody asked there's questions too.
Yeah, I know. We'll get to the questions right now. Okay, how do you get back to where we were? Here's the link to the book, guys. The Audible's coming out soon.
Scroll up. 404. Okay. Saeed will call you shortly. Thank you for correcting the previous entry for your phone number.
Thank you, Angelina. Angelina already bought the book.
Yes, thank you, Angelina.
Thank you, everybody else. There's the link.
What's this?
Chris. Somebody said bye, Chris.
Oh, goodbye.
Okay. Dan and Christ.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Well, yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody, for sticking around.
It's
Hopefully, we
been
didn't bore you too much.
All right. A few more seconds for people to click the link and catch y'all later. Bye-bye.
We just mute ourselves and call Saeed.
Oh, no. Bye-bye, everybody.
Oh, well, just end it.